Acting is reacting.
Directing.
I dare to say that the story that we're telling this time is by far the best story MachineGames have ever produced. It is extremely good. There are three things that I always try to carve out as kind of the core pillars of MachineGames. Regardless which game we're doing, these three pillars seems to always remain the same. We are always striving to do the best art we can, and with art I obviously mean audio, animation and everything visual. We do have the second pillar, that is gameplay. To have new, fresh, rewarding gameplay and have a shift in gameplay. Trying to push the envelope, really. And the third one is obviously the narrative.
Every good story is true in one way or another. And I know one you haven't heard of.
Narrative is like the core of our games.
It's in our DNA, it's what we do.
The narrative is what drives this game.
We put a lot of crafting into the story and the unique characters, and that is the red thread throughout the whole game.
The focus on the narrative at MachineGames is always central and core. It always starts with a story.
We start from a narrative outline that becomes walkthrough documents, and then the level designers work with those walkthrough documents, similar to like a movie script. We work with those, with the narrative designers and writers to iterate and figure out like, okay, how exactly do we need to build this out? And it's a pretty close collaboration to make sure that we're creating something that is emotionally resonant and that the gameplay is aligned with the narrative. But we start from narrative, and then everything we do, we're checking to make sure that it is narratively appropriate.
In making an Indiana Jones project, it really is about authenticity to the character and to the world. We're set in 1937, and it's very important to us that we get those aspects right. We don't want to just make things up. We talk a lot to historians and to experts in these fields to, really make sure that it's not just caricature of Egypt that you're exploring. It's something really, authentic to the culture and the times that you're exploring and that you're uncovering.
What of you?
It is something.
I mean, it's so detailed. All this attention was put into like how his jacket looks, which I think is so cool. Like people really care how it looks, because he's known for that. The leather jacket and the hat and the whip. Yeah, so just knowing that there are people who are like focusing entirely on those details was really surprising and just amazing.
There's great attention to detail, things that I never learn until I sit down and play the game, discover, and I'm like, oh, this was fantastic, small little idea that somebody came up with. I'm so happy that it's in there. You can tell that we don't just do it for the sake of it, we do it because we love it.
I think that the reason why we felt that this was a good fit, and the reason Todd Howard came to us and asked MachineGames if we were up for the challenge, is because we always had this strong focus on narrative and finding interesting aspects of characters and how to develop those characters further. And that's been very important to us. Looking at Indiana Jones, a really interesting, obviously existing character and existing IP, and trying to add something to it and dive deeper into who he is, his obsession with things, his hunt for truth and for answers.
An Indiana Jones game really need that sense of spontaneity, and you really have to think from your gut. You have to think, what would Indy do?
You should feel smart. You're not just a good guy going around punching bad guys, shooting bad guys. You are one of the smartest people in the world. You're not just exploring a tomb, you're beating the traps, you are outwitting the person who designed the tomb thousands of years ago.
I just always think of the scene where he just shoots the guy who's, waving the sword around, and he just does it, that's all, like no flash or anything, he just does what has to be done.
Yeah, it's an adventure. It's the Sunday matinee movie experience, but you're actually living it, you're not just watching.
We chose in a very specific period in the timeline of Indiana Jones where we want to be. That's close to Raiders of the Lost Ark. We also very early on decided that we want to go for likeness in both voice and visuals and behavior and animation. We never had an idea that we were going to reinvent Indiana Jones. We always wanted to make the first impression that the world got to know and love in the 80s with Indiana and the Raiders of the Lost Ark.
So in order to recreate and bring that iconic 80s Indiana Jones movie vibe, the cast was incredibly dedicated and important in that process. We were also working with a really talented performance director, Tom Keegan. I worked with him for years, and he really, he goes all in to all of his projects, and he was so supportive to the cast.
The voice director, Tom Keegan, he's incredible. Before the session, we'd prep a list of efforts that we want to record. And he would do so well at getting people into character, and it was just amazing seeing, especially like Troy Baker, obviously, because he's Indy. Like, he just immediately snaps. You know when it's Troy and you know when it's Indy, and it's just, he goes right into it.
Just trying to nail the likeness of Harrison Ford and Indiana Jones in that era was a challenge, and a fun, exciting challenge. I mean, how do you recreate that charming, crooked smile? Just getting to that likeness and nailing the animation was really challenging. I remember our first table read, because this was during the height of the pandemic, so we had to have a virtual table read. His name on Teams was Indiana Jones. He had his hat, he had his whip. He was all in from the start. We were just at the table read stage. And he's brought that dedication into the project throughout until the very, very end, and he's still very dedicated.
The game wouldn't be what it is if we didn't have Troy Baker, acting out and doing full performance, making sure that Indiana Jones comes to life and really becoming Indiana Jones in the game.
Like this reaction here, I think that's so Indy right there. It's just like why, I don't know, there's so much personality in that. It's so much more than him just getting kicked in the face. It's like he's angry, he's annoyed, like he's in the situation, but he's also like not helpless. Like he sounds even like strong kind of in it, like he knows he's gonna get him back for that. It has to have some like breathiness, I feel like. Breathiness, I mean, there's still tone there, but, and like something where he sounds kind of like annoyed at the same time too. There's gotta be some sort of like attitude or personality in it. And yeah, again, like Troy pulls it off so well.
We have this amazing cast for this project. I've been working on several games, and I think that the cast, the lineup that we have for this one is maybe the best so far. I think that MachineGames have maybe we made our best villain so far in Emmerich Voss, played by Marius Gavrilis. Also, spectacular performance. Almost eerie at the time. Seeing him being this very nice, super humble guy, offset, and then stepping into character, becoming this super crazy, psychotic super villain. It's like, oh my God. Then of course we have Alessandra Mastronardi that plays Gina, a character that you will see plenty of in the game. She's alongside Indiana Jones major sections of the game.
Okay then, let's see if you can keep up.
Fine. What do you mean if I can keep up?
We have this very interesting, complex character, Locust, played by Tony Todd. He's this tall, mysterious character with deep voice. And we were looking at, I was seeing all of these videos, and nothing really felt right. Everything was just like the standard, I am tall, talking with deep voice. And we kind of jokingly almost said, shouldn't we just see if we can get like Tony Todd, because he's, he would be amazing for this. And, talking to our casting director and agency, Emily Schrever and Tom Keegan, it's like, yes, it might be that Tony Todd is available. Like, yes, okay, cool. And then we actually got audition videos with him. And that instantly changed everything. Like from seeing these other, very good performers, obviously, doing their take on the brief that we had for Locust. But Tony Todd, he was looking at it from a completely different angle, and he kind of picked up like the mysterious aspect and like the eeriness of this character, and did a completely different interpretation and performance. And it just, it floored the competition instantly. It was like, yes, there is Locust. And, Tony Todd, what an amazing hero. And it's been a privilege to be able to get the chance to work with him and meet him as a person. He's been fantastic. And it's been, emotional now when he has passed, of course, that we had the opportunity to work with him. But it's been, extremely, extremely rewarding and great.
Come on, Marcus. We need to find out what he took.
Yes, righto.
So we were working with really talented people that were bringing, everything to the mocap stage. And then, of course, our stunt doubles did an amazing work. We have a lot of cool action scenes in this game. So we had people hanging from wires.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
We had people jumping, climbing, pulling, all the whip scenes. We had so much cool action in the mocap stage.
Here we have some props that we use to build sets. So in our game we have traversals, we have some cool set pieces, and we use these accessories to build a cool set here. And our motion capture actors jump around and move around those, and we help them out with that. Here we have a lot of the suits that our motion capture artists wear, and we have some shoes and really nice collection of guns as well, and accessories that the actor might use while capturing. Oh yeah, I can show you some of the items that we've used. We have in this whip and a suitcase. Sometimes you have to be inventive. And of course, the iconic hat.
So the whip in the game is effectively our second biggest character. Like, you play as Indiana Jones, that's our key character, but the second one is the whip. And it was a lot of work getting it from, wouldn't this be a cool kind of thing, into behaving the way a player expects. Because we initially started making it a physically accurate thing, because why not? And then we found out that that's a terrible idea, because even though it may look right, that's not what the player expects. They expect it to behave as it does in the movies. And in the movies, they can do camera cuts and things like that, and we can't.
So these markings track the whip or the object that you're holding throughout the space. And with the cameras, they see where the marker is and track it throughout the motion. It was quite difficult actually to mocap the whip. So we've experimented with several approaches, and in the end we kind of settled for a mostly keyframed approach, but also we do have some bits that is mocapped. Working on Indiana Jones and the Great Circle has been quite a challenge actually, but a really fun challenge. Indiana is solving puzzles in the game and in the movies, and we've been solving puzzles. We're like, how can we put this gameplay experience together? How can we collaborate to give the player the best feeling ever when playing the game, to make them feel like indie?
We first got a lot of surprise reactions. Oh, is MachineGames making Indiana Jones games? Is that not a bit out of character? What's happening here? Aren't you supposed to do shooters and killing people with hatchets? Apparently we can do other things.
Working on Indiana Jones has been a really interesting set of challenges, because we're trying to do something with the game that is, there's not a lot of direct comparisons. I think for me, the way I've been thinking about it is that it's like if you took a classic LucasArts adventure game and then had the immersive qualities of Dishonored or Thief. And so there's not a lot of easy reference points to say, we're doing one of those. And even to our own back catalog, it's, Indiana Jones isn't a pure straight up first person shooter. It has shooting elements in it, but a lot more of the time is spent exploring, adventuring, puzzling. And so that's been a whole set of interesting challenges that's been exciting because of the novelty and freshness of it, but also not easy.
Because we mostly focus on first person games, it's really important to have the player feel like they're embodying the character. They're not just playing a game, they are Indiana Jones.
I mean, again, we want you to feel like Indy, right? So Indy is known for, I mean, he just wants to find out like what's going on. He wants to discover the mystery, and once there is a mystery that he doesn't know, like he'll stop at nothing to find it. So the story here has to be compelling enough to make the player want to do that, you know, like Indiana Jones would.
This aspect covers the whole game. Like, it's not just about dialogue and the story. It's about the animations. It's about the how you play the game. You know, Indiana Jones isn't someone dual-wielding assault rifles. It's, you know, he tries to outsmart his enemies, and when he can't, he'll, you know, use his fists and his street smarts.
Fun thing, you can use this in-game to beat up enemies. As a fan of the music, I guess.
Mind feeding Osiris, Dr. Jones?
I don't think he's hungry.
Making cutscenes, and especially making cutscenes in a game that is based more on movies as opposed to another video game, for instance, it carried a slightly different approach. I mean, we've all watched the source material many times over, we know it by heart, and we tried to do something that would fit in the world, of course, and I really think we achieved that, but we don't try to lock ourselves too much. The question again echoes, what would indie do? And that is just the sort of mantra we follow. And other things that comes with it, how would they film this? What kind of technique would they use? Would this be a stunt? Would this be this? We try to ask ourselves the same questions, try to really get into the mindset of we are filming something. We're not making something in a video game, even though we are. We're doing something the way that kind of echoes how they would have done it, which is always really fun. And we try to have this approach, I think, for many other cinematics and other games too.
It's been extremely interesting and challenging at points, or you know, throughout production cycle, because very early on we started to think about, you know, everyone that loves Indiana Jones, which is, you know, a lot of people. But there is this weird reality when there are actually people that don't know of Indiana Jones, who he is, you know. Imagine, right? But those people exist, and we love them too. And they are a lot of those people that enjoy quality adventure games. So very early on, we obviously made sure that we're not making a game only for Indiana Jones fans. We're making a high-quality, narrative-driven adventure game for people that enjoy narrative-driven adventure games with a lot of puzzles and cool characters in there. So regardless if you know who Indiana Jones is or not, you will enjoy this game because it's a high-quality adventure game. Hopefully you can play it with your dad that loved it back in the 80s, if you know, or you can play it with your kids that don't know of Indiana Jones yet, but you can absolutely show them who he is.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me.
When we started out, everyone was extremely excited, obviously. We have a lot of huge Indiana Jones fans on the team. We quite quickly also, I wouldn't say that we got worried, but we've been doing another type of games with another character for many years, and those games had a kind of different approach in terms of the amount of shooting and the level of gore and violence, right? So there's a muscle memory within the halls of MachineGames that is trained in a certain way. And before we managed to retrain that muscle memory, we were not struggling, but it was a challenge to, you know, this can't become a shooter because that's not who Indiana Jones is. This can't become a game that is all about gore and violence, because that's absolutely not what Indiana Jones is. It's much more focused on the puzzles, the adventure, exploration. But when we hit the position in the production cycle where we felt that all of that started to kind of click together, it felt really strong and very fun. And the team has been excited from day one.
From the start, it was so exciting just finding out that this is what we're going to do next. This is something we're going to do. And I think perhaps people are a bit surprised that why we would do it from the beginning, but it just became obvious after a while. We have some very, very similar foundations, and we're used to this kind of narrative language. We know how to really carry a story. And that was what excited me, that you noticed how well we could do this and how obvious it felt.
One of the biggest challenges was working on puzzles. Puzzles are something that is a little bit new to the studio, and so trying to figure out the right balance of something having good flavor and interest, but also being challenging, and making sure that it's not a complete blocker for a player who maybe isn't as interested in puzzles. And so we ended up creating puzzle difficulties and a pretty robust hint system to make sure that players can engage with puzzles as they want to. But that was something new for us, so it was a lot of fun.
That's it. Fantastic.
If you watch the original movies, the traps are almost always these very slow time pressure experiences of like this kind of escalating or cascade of mistakes and errors that there's a comedy to like the Temple of Doom Crusher, where you know, you get the close-up of Indy saying, "We're about to die," and reaching his arm out, and that kind of that style of trap is very different from a lot of video game traps. Are more like you trip a tripwire and then boom, you blow up, and then you reload a checkpoint, and that's pretty easy for us to do. But what the constraint that I tried to have us follow with our traps was to go more like Temple of Doom, really draw it out, really play up the humor, and try to build a whole emotional journey around a trap rather than just dead.
The biggest challenge building this game compared to previous titles is the scale of the game. We started out with ideas for how big of a world and how big of the environments we wanted to make, and we drastically underestimated what the artists were going to do with it. So that trying to keep up with all the crazy ideas and the artists' visions was the biggest challenge.
With this game, we also have a lot larger areas than we're used to, and they're very densely populated. So, yeah, I mean, just getting the engine to kind of being able to handle that load and streaming things as you go around the world.
We built an engine that we have named Motor. In the base of it is IdTech from our colleagues over in Dallas. And then we have reworked it and molded it into something that allows us to make this game, because we don't make the same types of games. We spent the better part of 4 years getting it to the point where we can release the game in the state it is. The main challenge has been the creative people, because they have a lot of ideas about things they want to do, and being on the technology side of things, building the tools and the infrastructure to facilitate and allow for that. Because we can predict most things and we can come up with solutions for most things, but sometimes they have really crazy ideas. And we try to make most of it happen, but it isn't always possible.
It's like, oh, I've got a crazy idea, what if we do this? And sometimes those ideas are totally crazy and it's just fun to goof around and joke about, but other times there's like a kernel of something that's like, ooh, actually, wait a second, let's make it a little bit less crazy, and now it's in the game. And I was joking with some of the team just last week that it feels like we've got away with a lot of little jokes that are like, these things that started out as like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if? And they're there in the game. It's surprising how much of gameplay comes out of just joking with each other and having fun.
Turns out that if you give people very flexible tools, they do crazy things with them.
I think that what a lot of people don't realize about what it takes to make a great game is all the years you spend from just idea, concept, and then iterating to script and developing new tech, and just all these departments and these people working together to create something extraordinary for the gamers out there.
Building high frame rate, high performance games isn't as simple as it sounds. So we spend a lot of time fixing all the small things to make sure that the game will run flawlessly for you.
Maybe that you can spend like a week trying to fix a bug that ends up being just a single line of code that needs changing, and you can spend the same amount of time implementing an entirely new feature that's like 1,000 lines of code.
It really takes an army to make a video game. You know, if I want to add a character, you know, it may be easy for me just to write down that character's name and dialogue, but then an actor needs to be cast. The artists need to model that character and animate them. We need to record the motion capture and the audio for that character. That all needs to be implemented in the game by level designers and sound designers. If that character does any like stunts or anything in one of the cutscenes, we need to get stunt actors on board. Every small detail in a game has so many people touching it and adding their own fingerprints to it, which is something very difficult but very special.
You have any idea of the archaeological significance of the Great Circle? I'm not letting this one go.
This game is by far the biggest game that we ever made. It's the longest game and the most amount of content that we ever had. There's so much for you to explore in the game. There's so much content to see and experience. And we are a fairly small team at MachineGames, but we made a really big game. And that wouldn't be possible if we didn't have the best team in the world. So, every day I'm thankful for going to work and being at MachineGames because I get to work with this amazing team and calling them my coworkers. So that's very, very, I feel fortunate.